The city hummed a tired tune as Adrian stepped out of his office building. The day had been long, filled with endless meetings and paperwork that seemed to multiply on its own. His shoulders sagged and his eyes felt heavy, like tiny weights were pulling them down. All he wanted was a quiet corner, a good drink, and a moment to simply be. His feet, almost on their own, turned towards the Evening Star. It wasn't the fanciest place, but it had a charm that always drew him in. The dim lights, the soft murmur of low conversations, and the rich smell of old wood in something sweet, like spiced cider, always made him feel welcome. It was his favorite spot, a place where the world's noise faded away. As he pushed open the heavy wooden door, a small bell jingled softly above him, a sound he'd come to know well. The air inside was warm and comforting, a stark contrast to the cool evening breeze outside. His gaze swept over the familiar room, noting the few patrons scattered at tables, lost in their own worlds. Then his eyes landed on the bar, and a small, tired smile touched his lips. Behind the polished counter, a man with kind eyes and a welcoming smile was wiping down glasses. Lucas. Adrian felt a tiny spark of warmth, not just from the cozy atmosphere, but from seeing Lucas. It was a familiar feeling, one that had been growing steadily over the past few weeks, though Adrian hadn't quite put a name to it. He just knew that seeing Lucas always made his day a little brighter, even after the most draining hours. He walked over to his usual stool at the end of the bar, a spot that offered both a good view of the room and a sense of privacy. He slung his work bag onto the floor beside him and sighed, a long, drawn-out breath that carried all the day's worries with it. He rested his elbows on the cool wood of the bar, feeling the smooth grain beneath his fingertips. He closed his eyes for just a moment, letting the quiet peace of the evening star wash over him. When he opened them again, Lucas was already walking towards him, a gentle smile playing on his lips, a silent question in his eyes. Adrian felt a tiny bit of his tiredness lift, replaced by a quiet sense of anticipation. Lucas approached Adrian with a soft cloth still in hand, his movements easy and practiced. His smile was warm, a genuine curve of his lips that reached his eyes, making them crinkle at the corners. "Long day, Adrian?" he asked, his voice a low, gentle rumble that was always soothing. Adrian nodded, a tired sigh escaping him. "You have no idea, Lucas, paperwork monsters and meeting goblins, they never stop." He managed a weak chuckle, feeling a little foolish for complaining, but Lucas always listened without judgment. Lucas chuckled too, a light, airy sound. "Sounds like you fought a good fight. You look like you earned something special." He didn't ask what Adrian wanted, he simply turned and reached for a particular bottle behind the bar, already knowing. Adrian watched him, a quiet admiration filling him. Lucas remembered. He always did. It was a small thing, but it made Adrian feel seen, in a way few others managed after a day spent being just another professional. The clinking of ice against glass was a pleasant sound in the quiet bar. Lucas poured the amber liquid, the warm light reflecting off its surface. He added a splash of something else, a secret touch Adrian had learned to love. As Lucas slid the glass across the smooth wood, their fingers brushed lightly. It was just for a second, a fleeting touch, but Adrian felt a small shiver run through him. Lucas's touch was surprisingly soft, and Adrian wondered if it was just his imagination, or if Lucas had lingered just a beat longer than needed. "Here you go," Lucas said, his smile still there, perhaps a little wider now. His eyes held a sparkle that Adrian found himself getting lost in sometimes. It wasn't just friendly. There was something else there, something playful and a little bit knowing. Adrian took a slow sip of his drink. The familiar taste, rich and smooth, warmed him from the inside out. It was perfect, as always. "Thanks, Lucas," he murmured, feeling a bit of the day's tension melt away with each swallow. He looked up at Lucas, who was now leaning against the bar, not rushing off to serve someone else, but staying right there, just for Adrian. "Any time," Lucas replied, his gaze steady and inviting. The easy silence stretched between them, comfortable and familiar. It was in these moments that Adrian felt most at home in the Evening Star, not just because of the good drink, but because of Lucas's presence, which felt like a soft, welcoming hug after a hard day. He knew without a doubt that he wouldn't trade these quiet evenings for anything. The air around them was easy, like a comfortable old sweater. Adrian found himself telling Lucas about his day, not just the boring parts but the funny little things too. He talked about a tiny bird that had flown into his office window, startling everyone, and Lucas laughed. A genuine hearty sound that made Adrian feel even better. "Sounds like that bird had a very important message for you," Lucas teased, his eyes twinkling. "Maybe it was telling you to take a break from all those paperwork monsters." Adrian smiled, a real unforced smile that reached his eyes. Maybe it was, or maybe it just wanted to see what all the fuss was about. He felt the stiffness in his shoulders ease as he spoke, the stress of the day slowly melting away. Lucas had a way of making everything seem lighter, more manageable. They talked about simple things, a new movie Adrian had seen, a funny story Lucas had heard from another customer, the changing weather. Lucas shared a silly tale about trying to make a fancy cocktail and accidentally mixing up the ingredients, resulting in something that tasted like lemon-flavored regret. Adrian laughed out loud, a full, booming laugh that surprised even himself. It had been a long time since he'd laughed so freely. Lucas listened with interest, nodding at the right moments, asking thoughtful questions that showed he was truly paying attention. He wasn't just a bartender, he was a good listener, a storyteller, and a source of quiet comfort. Adrian felt a lightness settle over him, a feeling of being completely relaxed and at ease. It was like catching up with an old friend, one who understood him without needing many words. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, a comfortable back-and-forth that Adrian cherished. Lucas's playful jokes and gentle teasing always managed to pull Adrian out of his serious work mind. He felt himself unwinding, his thoughts slowing down, the worries of the office fading into the background. He took another sip of his drink, feeling the warmth spread through him. Lucas was leaning on the counter again, his chin resting on his hand, his gaze soft and attentive. Adrian realized he wasn't just talking to a bartender. He was sharing a moment, a connection with someone he genuinely liked being around. The bar, usually just a place for a drink, felt like a cozy haven, made even more special by Lucas's presence and their easy, flowing talks. He felt a deep sense of contentment, a quiet joy that settled deep in his chest. As Lucas finished telling a funny story about a customer who tried to pay with a handful of buttons, his eyes, usually warm and friendly, seemed to catch the dim bar lights in a special way. They sparkled not just with amusement, but with something deeper, something that made Adrian's breath catch for a moment. Lucas's gaze lingered on Adrian's face, a soft, searching look that felt more intimate than their usual friendly exchanges. Adrian felt a strange warmth spread through his chest, like a tiny bird fluttering its wings inside him. It wasn't just the drink making him feel this way. It was the way Lucas looked at him, a look that seemed to see past his tired professional self and glimpse something more. There was a quiet understanding in those eyes, a hint of something unsaid but deeply felt. Lucas's smile, always kind, now held a hint of playfulness, a secret shared just between them. He leaned a little closer across the counter, his voice dropping slightly as he said, "You know, Adrian, you have a really great laugh. It makes the whole bar feel brighter." A blush crept up Adrian's neck. He wasn't used to compliments, especially not ones delivered with such a gentle, focused gaze. He cleared his throat, feeling a little shy. "Oh, well, you tell good stories," he mumbled, trying to keep his voice steady. He met Lucas's eyes again, and the sparkle was still there, even stronger now. It was like Lucas was holding a small, happy secret, and Adrian was starting to feel like he was part of it. This wasn't just friendly banter anymore. This was something different, something that made Adrian's heart beat a little faster. He found himself studying Lucas's face, noticing the way his dark hair curled slightly at his temples, the strong line of his jaw, the gentle curve of his lips. He realized he had been noticing these things for a while, but tonight they seemed to stand out more, to hold a new meaning. Lucas then moved slightly, reaching for a glass, and his arm brushed against Adrian's on the counter. It was a fleeting touch, barely there, but Adrian felt it keenly. A warmth spread from where they touched, tingling up his arm. He wondered if Lucas had meant to do it or if it was just an accident. But the way Lucas's eyes met his again, full of that sparkling, knowing look, made Adrian think it wasn't an accident at all. A hopeful, thrilling thought began to bloom in Adrian's chest. As the evening deepened, the earlier exhaustion Adrian had felt seemed to simply melt away, replaced by a lively energy he hadn't known he possessed. The soft lighting of the evening star and the quiet hum of conversation from the few remaining patrons created a perfect backdrop for the growing warmth between him and Lucas. Adrian found himself leaning forward, completely caught up in their conversation, his tiredness forgotten. Lucas, ever observant, noticed Adrian's renewed spirits. "Looks like those paperwork monsters didn't stand a chance against a good drink and a bit of chatter," he said, his eyes twinkling with amusement. He winked, and Adrian felt that familiar flutter in his chest again, stronger this time. Their playful talk became even more fun. Lucas teased Adrian gently about his serious work clothes, suggesting he should come in wearing a Hawaiian shirt next time. Adrian, in turn, joked about Lucas's perfectly neat hair, wondering if he used a ruler to make sure every strand was in place. Their laughter mingled, light and free, echoing softly in the cozy bar. Adrian found himself studying Lucas more closely, not just as the friendly bartender, but as a person he was deeply interested in. He liked the way Lucas's brow furrowed slightly when he thought about something, and the way his hands moved with such grace as he wiped down the counter. Every little detail about Lucas seemed to shine brighter under the dim lights. The thought of going home no longer held its usual appeal. Instead, Adrian wished the night could stretch on just a little longer. He wanted to keep talking to Lucas, to keep feeling this easy, joyful connection. He realized he wasn't just enjoying the talk, he was enjoying Lucas *. His humor, his kindness, the way he made Adrian feel completely himself. Lucas, sensing Adrian's focus, would sometimes pause, letting his gaze rest on Adrian for a moment longer than necessary. These small, quiet looks were filled with an unspoken question, a soft invitation that Adrian was only just beginning to understand. He felt a growing excitement, a thrilling sense of possibility. The bar, once just a stop after work, now felt like a stage where something wonderful was about to begin. Adrian's interest in Lucas wasn't just a fleeting feeling. It was a strong pull, drawing him closer, making him hope for more than just another friendly chat. Adrian finished his first drink, the ice having long since melted. He placed the empty glass on the counter, a soft clink echoing in the quieter bar. Without Adrian even needing to ask, Lucas was already reaching for the bottle, a knowing look on his face. "Another one for the monster slayer," he quipped, his eyes dancing with mirth. Adrian chuckled, feeling light and happy. "Exactly, gotta keep my strength up for tomorrow's battles." As Lucas poured the second drink, he moved with a slow, deliberate grace. He leaned a little closer across the counter than before, his arm stretching out, making his body angle towards Adrian. When he gently slid the fresh glass over, his fingers brushed against Adrian's. This time, it wasn't a fleeting touch. Lucas's fingertips lingered, a soft, warm pressure against Adrian's hand for a moment that felt both quick and wonderfully long. A jolt like a tiny electric spark shot through Adrian's hand and up his arm. It was a thrilling feeling, warm and exciting, making his heart thump a little harder in his chest. He looked up, his eyes meeting Lucas's. In that moment, Lucas's smile softened, losing its playful edge and becoming something much more tender, more open. His eyes held a depth that Adrian had only just begun to notice, a quiet invitation. Adrian felt a blush creep up his cheeks again, but this time it was mixed with a surge of something bolder, more daring. He didn't pull his hand away. Instead, he let his fingers rest for another heartbeat against Lucas's, acknowledging the spark, the unspoken message that passed between them. Lucas's gaze dropped to their touching hands for a brief second, then lifted back to Adrian's face, a silent question in his eyes. Adrian felt a thrilling rush, a certainty that this wasn't just his imagination. Lucas was indeed flirting, and not so quietly anymore. The air around them suddenly felt thick with unspoken words, with a delicious tension that made Adrian's skin tingle. "Thanks," Adrian managed, his voice a little softer than he intended. He took the glass, his fingers still warm from Lucas's touch. The drink tasted even better this time, infused with the exciting new feelings bubbling inside him. He felt a deep sense of connection, a silent understanding passing between them that went beyond words. This was more than just a drink. It was a moment, a shared secret that felt incredibly special. As Adrian savored his drink, a sudden, clear thought blossomed in his mind. It wasn't just tonight or the past few weeks that Lucas had made him feel this way. He realized with a startling clarity that for a long time now he had been looking forward to his visits to the Evening Star much more than just for a quiet drink. He was looking forward to Lucas' asterisk. A warm wave, different from the alcohol, spread through him. He remembered rushing through his work on certain evenings, pushing to finish tasks, all so he could make it to the bar before Lucas's shift ended. He remembered the small disappointment he felt on the rare occasions Lucas wasn't working. It wasn't just a friendly acquaintance, it was something deeper, something he had unconsciously built his week around. He liked Lucas. No more than liked, he really liked Lucas. The thought, once blurry and unspoken, now stood bright and clear in his mind. He liked Lucas's kind eyes, his easy laugh, his gentle teasing, the way he remembered Adrian's drink without being asked. He liked the way Lucas made him feel seen and understood, even when Adrian didn't say much. He glanced at Lucas, who was now polishing a section of the bar a little further down, but still close enough that Adrian could feel his presence. Lucas's head was tilted, his brows slightly furrowed in concentration, but every now and then his eyes would flick up to meet Adrian's, a quick, almost shy glance followed by a soft smile. That subtle glance, that shy smile, confirmed Adrian's newfound realization. It wasn't just Adrian feeling this way. There was a shared thread, a quiet understanding that hummed between them. The sparks, the lingering touches, the deeper gazes, they weren't just his hopeful imagination. They were real. A thrill, mixed with a touch of nervousness, ran through Adrian. What did this mean? What would happen now that he finally admitted these feelings to himself? The quiet of the bar, usually calming, now felt charged with a new kind of energy. Adrian took another slow sip of his drink, his mind buzzing with the exciting possibilities this realization brought. He knew deep down that he wanted to explore this feeling, to see where this unspoken attraction might lead. He wanted to know Lucas, not just as his favorite bartender, but as something more, much more. As the hours slipped by, the gentle buzz of the Evening Star began to fade. One by one, the other patrons gathered their coats and bags, offering quiet goodbyes to Lucas before disappearing into the night. The clink of glasses and the low murmur of voices slowly died down, leaving behind a peaceful, almost hushed quiet. Adrian found himself acutely aware of each departure, each opening and closing of the heavy wooden door as the space around them grew larger and more intimate. With fewer people around, Adrian and Lucas naturally lowered their voices. Their soft talks, which had been enjoyable before, now felt different. They seemed to hold more weight, more meaning. Each word exchanged felt important, a precious thread weaving between them in the deepening quiet. The playful jokes continued, but they were softer, laced with a new layer of tenderness and understanding. Lucas leaned closer, his elbows resting on the bar, his gaze fixed on Adrian. "So, what's your biggest dream, Adrian?" he asked, his voice a low, thoughtful tone. It wasn't a question he'd normally ask a customer, and Adrian knew it. It felt like an invitation to share something real, something personal. Adrian paused, considering. He usually kept his dreams tucked away private. But with Lucas, in this quiet, emptying bar, it felt safe to share. "To build something truly meaningful," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "Something that helps people beyond just numbers on a spreadsheet." He then asked Lucas the same question, feeling a nervous excitement about Lucas's answer. Lucas smiled, a genuine, open smile that made Adrian's heart ache in a good way. "I guess mine is to create a place where everyone feels at home," he said, gesturing vaguely around the bar. A place like this, but maybe even more so, a real community. His eyes, warm and sincere, met Adrian's, and in that shared glance, Adrian felt a deep connection, a sense of belonging. The bar was almost empty now, just two other people at a distant table, their conversation barely a whisper. The silence around Adrian and Lucas was profound, making their quiet confessions feel incredibly significant. It was as if the world outside had faded away, leaving only them and their words, hanging in the warm, dim light. Adrian realized these weren't just friendly chats. They were moments of true connection, building a bridge between them, word by gentle word. Soon, the last of the other customers had left, their footsteps fading into the quiet street outside. The bar was truly empty now, save for Adrian and Lucas. The soft jazz music that had been playing all evening seemed to grow louder, filling the space with its gentle notes. Adrian felt a new kind of quiet settle in, a deep hush that made his own heartbeat sound a little louder in his ears. Lucas, with a casual grace, began the nightly ritual of cleaning up. He moved slowly, almost lazily, wiping down the bar top with long, unhurried strokes. He gathered empty glasses, stacking them with a soft clink that barely broke the silence. Adrian watched him, every movement seeming purposeful yet unhurried. It was as if Lucas was trying to make the cleaning last, to stretch out their time together. As Lucas moved, his eyes would often dart to Adrian. Quick glances, then a soft smile, almost a secret one, that made Adrian's chest feel warm. He would pause his cleaning, sometimes to rearrange a bottle, sometimes just to lean against the counter, his gaze lingering on Adrian for a beat too long. Each glance was like a whispered question, a silent "Are you still here? Are you going to stay?" Adrian felt a growing sense of wonder. What would happen now? He usually left when the bar got this quiet, but tonight the thought of leaving felt wrong, incomplete. He wanted to see what Lucas would do, what Lucas would say. The air between them felt thick with unspoken words, with a delicious, thrilling tension that made Adrian feel fully alive. He nursed the last sips of his drink, barely tasting it, his mind completely focused on Lucas. Lucas walked to the far end of the bar, collecting some empty bottles. His back was to Adrian for a moment, and Adrian found himself holding his breath, waiting. When Lucas turned back, he caught Adrian's gaze and held it, a deep, knowing look in his eyes. He slowly walked back towards Adrian, his steps soft on the wooden floor. The silence stretched, filled with anticipation. Adrian's heart hammered against his ribs. He felt like he was standing on the edge of something new, something exciting, and he eagerly awaited the next step. Lucas finished tidying the last few glasses, placing them carefully on a drying rack. The soft clinking sounds were the only interruption to the gentle jazz music. He then turned fully to Adrian, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. Adrian's heart skipped a beat, sensing that the moment he had been waiting for was finally here. "Well," Lucas said, his voice a little lower than before, "that's it for tonight, Adrian. Closing time." Adrian felt a small pang of disappointment, a fleeting thought that the magical evening was coming to an end. He started to gather his things, ready to pull out his wallet to pay, but then he noticed something. Lucas hadn't moved from his spot behind the bar. He wasn't reaching for the bill or walking towards the door to hold it open. He was just standing there looking at Adrian. And then Lucas's smile grew wider, a slow, tender curve that spoke volumes without a single word. His eyes, full of that deep, sparkling warmth, held Adrian's gaze, an unspoken question in their depths. It wasn't the usual time to go home smile. This smile was different. It was an invitation, a soft, silent promise that the night didn't have to end just yet. Adrian felt a rush of warmth, a thrilling realization that Lucas wasn't asking him to leave. He was offering something more. The air between them hummed with a delicious anticipation. Adrian's hand, which had been reaching for his wallet, paused. He looked at Lucas, really looked at him, and saw the clear intention in his eyes, in the gentle tilt of his head. "Oh," Adrian breathed out, a soft sound in the quiet bar. He didn't know what else to say, his mind buzzing with the exciting possibilities Lucas's smile presented. He felt a blush creep up his neck, but this time it was from pure delight. He felt seen, truly seen, and deeply wanted. Lucas just kept smiling, that tender, knowing smile. He didn't push, didn't rush. He simply waited, letting Adrian understand the unspoken offer. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of possibilities, of shared understanding, of a line about to be crossed. Adrian knew with a certainty that settled deep in his heart that he didn't want to leave. Not now, not when Lucas was looking at him like this. Adrian watched, mesmerized, as Lucas slowly pushed himself off the bar. His movements were calm and deliberate, each step echoing slightly in the now silent room. Lucas didn't walk towards Adrian or towards the back of the bar. Instead, he walked slowly, purposefully, towards the heavy wooden front door, the one with the small bell that had jingled Adrian in earlier. Adrian's breath hitched in his throat. He understood. This wasn't a signal for him to leave. This was a signal that no one else would be coming in. A thrill, sharp and exciting, shot through him. He kept his eyes on Lucas, his heart beating a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The jazz music, still playing softly, felt like a secret soundtrack to their moment. Lucas reached the door. He didn't open it. Instead, he reached out and with a soft, clear asterisk click, pushed the lock shut. The sound, small yet distinct, echoed loudly in the suddenly quiet bar. It was a final, definite sound, sealing them inside. It was a sound that closed off the outside world, leaving only Adrian and Lucas, bathed in the dim, warm light. Adrian felt a shiver, not of cold, but of pure excitement. The locked door was like a promise, a silent agreement that what was about to happen would be just for them. It felt daring, a little forbidden, and utterly wonderful. He watched Lucas turn from the door, his eyes immediately finding Adrian's across the room. Lucas's smile was still there, but it was softer now, more direct, filled with a gentle invitation. He didn't rush back. He simply stood by the door for a moment, letting the weight of that locked door, that echoing click, settle between them. The silence stretched, a comfortable, expectant silence. Adrian felt a giddy lightness, a sense of disbelief that this was actually happening. He took a slow, deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. The air in the bar felt different now, charged with a new kind of energy. It was no longer just the Evening Star, his favorite bar. It was their space, a secret world waiting for them to explore. Adrian's gaze never left Lucas, eager for his next move, for the moment when the unspoken would finally be said. The click of the lock wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. After locking the door, Lucas stood for a moment, letting the silence and the weight of his actions settle in the air. Then, slowly, he turned back towards Adrian. His smile was no longer just tender. It held a spark of pure mischief, a playful challenge that made Adrian's heart leap. His eyes, usually warm, now truly shone, reflecting the dim bar lights like tiny stars. Adrian watched, completely captivated, as Lucas began to walk back towards him. He didn't rush. Each step was slow, deliberate, building the delicious tension that had taken root between them. The jazz music played on, a soft, intimate backdrop to the unfolding scene. When Lucas reached the counter directly in front of Adrian, he stopped. He didn't say a word. Instead, he simply leaned forward, resting his forearms on the polished wood. The distance between them, which had always felt like a respectful boundary, now felt excitingly small. Adrian could see every detail of Lucas's face. The slight stubble along his jaw, the tiny crinkles at the corners of his shining eyes, the way his lips curved in that knowing, playful smile. "So," Lucas said, his voice a soft murmur, barely above a whisper. It was a single word, but it was loaded with meaning, with all the unspoken questions and desires that had been building between them for weeks. He didn't need to say more. His eyes, bright and full of a daring warmth, spoke for him. They asked, "Are you ready for this?" Adrian felt a thrilling rush, a wave of heat spreading through his body. He swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. He could feel the warmth of Lucas's presence, the quiet strength of him, just inches away. The playful look on Lucas's face, combined with the shining intensity in his eyes, left no doubt about his intentions. He wasn't just being friendly anymore. He was making a move, a bold and exciting one, and Adrian felt a powerful pull to meet him halfway. The quiet of the bar was no longer just peaceful. It was charged, alive with the electricity between them. Adrian's gaze dropped to Lucas's lips, then back to his eyes, which still held that playful, inviting sparkle. He realized with a rush of certainty that this was exactly what he had been hoping for deep down all along. The line had been drawn, and now it was about to be crossed. Lucas leaned over the counter, his eyes shining with mischief and warmth, holding Adrian's gaze. His simple "so" hung in the air, a soft invitation. Adrian felt a rush of pure thrill, a giddy lightness spreading through him. There was no mistaking the message in Lucas's smile, in the way he was looking at him. It was clear, Lucas wanted him to stay. And Adrian wanted to stay too, more than anything. A small, genuine smile bloomed on Adrian's face, a mirror of Lucas's. He didn't need to say anything. His eyes, now sparkling with a shared excitement, conveyed his answer just as clearly. The tension in the air, which had been building all night, was now a delightful hum of possibility, a silent conversation between their hearts. He felt a sudden boldness, a confidence he hadn't known he possessed. Adrian pushed off his stool, moving a little closer to the counter, closing the small gap that remained between them. He leaned forward slightly, mirroring Lucas's posture, his gaze never leaving Lucas's eyes. The unspoken question in Lucas's eyes was met with an unspoken yes in Adrian's. The jazz music continued its gentle melody, a perfect, romantic backdrop to their quiet moment. Adrian could smell the subtle scent of Lucas, a clean, fresh scent mixed with a hint of something spicy, like the very bar they were in. It was a comforting smell, one that made him want to lean even closer. Lucas's smile softened further, losing its playful edge and becoming incredibly tender, almost vulnerable. He reached out a hand slowly, and Adrian watched it move, a silent invitation. Adrian didn't hesitate. He reached out his own hand, meeting Lucas's halfway. Their fingers intertwined, a soft, firm grip that sent another jolt of warmth through Adrian's entire body. This touch was different from before. It was deliberate, a clear crossing of the line they had both sensed for weeks. Adrian felt a deep sense of rightness, a feeling that this moment, this connection, was exactly where he was meant to be. The quiet of the empty bar, the dim lights, the soft jazz, it all combined to create a perfect, magical bubble around them. He wanted to get lost in this feeling, to explore every bit of this exciting new world opening up before them. The thrill was intoxicating, and Adrian knew, with a certainty that hummed in his very soul, that this was just the beginning. Their fingers were still intertwined across the polished bar, a warm, firm connection that spoke louder than any words. The quiet bar, usually just a comfortable retreat, now vibrated with a new kind of energy. It felt full, not with people, but with unspoken feelings finally out in the open, swirling around them like the soft jazz music. Adrian looked into Lucas's eyes and saw not just warmth and mischief, but a mirror of his own excitement and hopeful nervousness. All the quiet flirting, the lingering glances, the subtle touches over the past weeks, they had all led to this very moment. It was a thrilling realization, a sweet understanding that this attraction had been mutual all along. Lucas gently squeezed Adrian's hand, his smile tender and knowing. "I'm glad you stayed, Adrian," he murmured, his voice soft, almost a caress in the hushed air. "Me too, Lucas," Adrian replied, his voice a little shaky with emotion. He felt a joyous lightness, as if a heavy weight he hadn't known he was carrying had just lifted. There was no more guessing, no more wondering. Their secret feelings, once tucked away in glances and brushes of fingers, were now bright and clear, acknowledged by both. The dim lights of the evening star cast long shadows around them, making the space feel even more intimate, like a private world. Adrian felt a strong pull, a deep desire to lean even closer, to bridge the small gap between them completely. The thrill of the line finally being crossed was intoxicating, a sweet, daring joy. Lucas's thumb gently brushed the back of Adrian's hand, a small, comforting movement that sent a fresh wave of warmth through Adrian. He knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. The quiet of the empty bar was no longer just silence. It was a canvas, ready for them to fill with new shared moments, new laughter, and perhaps even more profound connections. Adrian smiled back at Lucas, a full, open smile that reached his eyes. "So," he said, mirroring Lucas's earlier word, letting his own voice carry all the hope and excitement he felt. He watched as Lucas's smile widened in return, a silent promise hanging beautifully in the charged, quiet air. The evening had begun with Adrian's tiredness, but it was ending with a thrilling, hopeful beginning.